What? I said I would record these now, and we're live. Should I do the Feed the Good Wolf podcast intro? Welcome to Feed the Good Wolf podcast. This is a podcast to make you fitter, faster, stronger. I'm Todd Wise. Everyone say their name.
Heather Chapa.
Harley Pesco-Solido.
Tyler Crump.
Thanks for joining us. Like and subscribe. Share with your friends. Helps the channel. Hello, Cody. Hey, man. I don't think he's 200 pounds, though. Tall, dark, handsome, and 200 pounds of skinny fat. We do have a youth development kid that calls Cody Marshmallow.
He kind of looks like him.
It's
Kind of
hilarious.
looks like a marshmallow man. A little poofy.
Cody or the kid?
Cody.
Oh, dude,
No.
why are you going to hate on a kid like that?
I would not hate on a
I
child.
was trying to
Heather.
clarify what he was saying. I was like,
Wow.
dang.
Jeez,
I think Cody was calling you skinny fat.
Probably.
Oh, maybe. That's fair.
I mean,
He's just mad that I was only 40 seconds off his 5K road pace.
I mean, that's a
5K.
lot.
What was the pace?
It wasn't
That's really not a
40. I
lot.
was giving him some time. It was actually 2 seconds, but I was just rounding up, giving him the benefit.
32 seconds. I feel like that's a lot.
It's 1 second per 500.
Yeah, that's not a lot. I mean, it's a lot to build and grow, but it's
Yeah.
really not a lot because I'm looking. I
Well,
want to try and cut
2
off.
seconds per 500.
Yeah, I want to cut off like 3 seconds so that I can get a lot of time back. It'd be good. This is gonna be tough. I don't want to tell everybody what I got.
Yeah, what'd you get?
I don't want to tell you live.
Okay, what'd Cody get?
I can't tell you. I'm just kidding. I have no shame. It doesn't matter. I'm not aerobic. I'm working on it. I got a 1925.7.
Cool.
That's great. Sub 20.
It's okay. I did a 10-minute Echo Bike max calorie test and Kayla beat me by 40 calories. So that's cool.
40?
Yeah. Well,
Oh.
no, I take that back. 30 calories.
Still.
I know it's a lot.
I mean, that's 3 cows a minute. That's a lot. What
I
was your
know.
cow score?
I don't want
Say
to tell
it.
you.
Come on. Who cares?
I suck. 98. She got
98?
she got like
You only
one-
got 98
She got like
calories in 10 minutes?
138.
No way. That doesn't make any sense. You were biking at under 10 calories a minute for 10 minutes? No way.
Don't be mean.
I
Todd.
mean, yeah, don't hate. I told you. The Echo Bike.
That just doesn't seem
Do you
right.
want to see it? I'll freaking pull it up right here.
Yeah, please. That just doesn't seem right.
Okay.
10
Sure it
calories?
does. Got them little legs, dude.
I
Oh,
know.
that's
Did you
mind-blowing.
like drop off severely, or did you just never ramp up?
No, I just kind of was. I was just like hanging in there.
Dang.
I didn't really. I actually
Dang.
didn't really dive at all.
Well,
I just pulled up my 5K row, which we all know I'm not great at rowing, and I'm at elevation. Cody needs to step it up, dude.
he got 18. He hasn't done it for a while, though. He
That's
got
fine.
18, 40, like 3 or 48 or something.
Yeah. I think you and I probably were
What'd you
close. 1919. That would have been August.
Ooh.
What'd you get?
I got 1925.
Yeah. So you're close.
I'm
Yeah,
good.
I mean, we're all right there. I mean, I think that
I'm gonna crush
again, I'm gonna
So, like,
rationalize the hell.
it.
I'm gonna rationalize the hell out of it.
Don't read the
But
comments when you're talking.
sorry. So I'm gonna rationalize the hell out of it. But elevation. The sun was in my eyes. That dog was barking. Fucking, I lost. It's okay.
It's from 14 months ago. Cody says
What was that
His-
time?
His 5K.
his 5K.
Oh, I thought you said you did it with him.
No. I
Oh,
would just
that's-
ask him what it was. Doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
No, why
14
would you?
months
That doesn't
ago?
matter.
Okay, this is why it matters. Cody, yesterday we're watching the youth development and the kids are snatching, and one of the kids like forgot that he's got to go wide, right? Because they're kids. So he did a narrow grip, like clean grip snatch. And Cody goes, "You should do that." And I was like, "I have, dude. I can like 205." Or I told him 245 because I couldn't remember what the video was. And he's like, "Oh," and he like walks off. And then I forget the video, and it's from 9 years ago.
Mhm.
And I it's 205 close grip snatch over at Sundown CrossFit. Shout out Aaron Costa in the back does like the airplane and goes like, "Ah." And
That's when 205 was like the hype, though.
it was narrow grip snatch 205 in 2015, dude. Come on, give me some love. And Cody goes, "I could do that tomorrow." I was like, "I did that 9 years ago." Like, I don't care that you
was
can do
in
it
third
tomorrow.
grade when that happened.
Yeah, he was in the 3rd grade. I was narrow grip snatching
He's over here eating Lunchables.
back in my day.
Got
Uh,
a snack pack.
But anyways, so it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They did it 14 months ago, and I did it yesterday. Okay, it's all the same.
Good times.
Yeah, that's
All
my.
right. So what are we talking about today?
Hold
Aside
on,
from just
I
like
got 5 people.
terrible performance metrics.
Yeah, sorry. We have 5. You talking about Heather?
Yeah, I suck. Thanks.
I was talking about all of us.
Okay, I get
to be
it. I
perfectly
get it.
honest.
If you're watching, put your 5K row in the chat. I want to know, or your 10 minute Echo Bike, assault bike. I don't care; those are obsolete. Echo Bike test, please. And today we're talking about the characteristics of a successful athlete. I saw this clip by Justin Sua. He was on a podcast and he was talking. Heather, you have the list, so we don't have to play the clip. It's unnecessary. Just characteristics of successful athletes, and a lot of it is being fixed mindset and growth mindset. Obviously, everybody should know that at this point. Huge thing. You know, if you've read any self-help book or Daily Stoic or any of those things, having a fixed mindset is bad. Having a growth mindset of abundance is good, right? Heather, you want to list off the 5 characters, or we'll go one at a time?
I'll say, how
One at
about
a
I
time.
list them one at a time? The first one, a successful athlete learns from failure.
They learn from failure. All right. I actually don't like the word failure, but we'll go with it. Especially in training. Like you could fail, agree or disagree, and add your pieces. I think you can fail in things that you try, like competitions or like a test, like something at the end of what you're trying to achieve. But I think in the process and the journey, I don't think you could fail. Does anyone have any difference of opinion in that?
Yeah.
All right, tell us.
Yeah. That just assumes that there's an end to your journey.
Oh, that's true. That's fair.
I think that there is no.
You get me on a technicality.
I mean, I think that like success and failure is all perception and based on expectations. And if you form expectations, often you just leave yourself disappointed. So that's why I have really low expectations or none, and then I'm always happy. I'm just kidding. That's more of the humorous end of it. But I think that that's actually like a really good perspective to form, is that there's a saying, it's like expectations are the thief of joy, because you either make them and then you make new goals. You either succeed and you make new goals and it's never good enough, or you miss the mark and then you're disappointed and you may dwell on it longer than necessary. So I don't think there is missing the mark on the given day, but that's not necessarily a failure, or it's just is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you that, like, okay, the endpoint thing, I get that. I think most people, though, that we work with, we try to get some type of goal. If that's like a small goal, like I want to snatch 10 more pounds, and you start working with somebody, that's like a small goal and there's an end outcome. Or I want to do this bigger goal, like I want to run a marathon in X time, there's an end outcome. But to your point, I do agree with you. There, as long as you keep trying and keep moving forward, there actually is like no failure and there's no end until you're in the ground. So yeah, you got me on a technicality, but I'm just saying.
I mean, that's the growth mindset sort of mentality around the goals, right? Like you can make quantifiable goals and you can try to develop a process to create progress over time. That's 100% great. But if you miss the mark, like how you perceive that is where the technicality that I'm sort of picking at is like, one, there's no end goal unless you choose not to do it again. Or, you learn from it, you take the notes, you reflect upon what happened and you try to learn from it and get better. So,
yeah. Well, I think that's it too, is like the learning piece of it, right? Because I think one of the things that I'm trying to work with a couple of my athletes right now, it's like that word, like I feel, and they don't actually like take the failure or whatever their training piece that they just had. And like, I'm like, okay, well, how can I quantifiably like look at like what happened? And then how can I change that to push the needle forward or work towards the goal? Because I think a lot of times we get just stuck in like, well, I didn't do the thing, or this didn't happen. And so it's like, well, why didn't that happen? And actually analyzing and learning from your quote unquote failure or whatever that circumstance, and then taking forward. Because I think a lot of times it's just, they don't know how to analyze that, or they're just like stuck in the failure and not like, okay, how do I learn from that? How do I push the needle forward?
100%. I think that's why I try to bring up, I use the word reflection, right? But
Yeah.
really it's becoming a student of the game, analyzing results, not only from the end goal outcome, but the throughout each day's process. So
Yeah.
every session has value that you can
Yeah.
take away and learn from to a degree. To a
Yeah.
degree.
Right.
So I would
Right.
say ultimately like what we're getting at and what Justin Sue is getting at is that process, if you're able to look at your session and get something from it, like let's say the 5K row, like I got a lot of information from that because the monitor gives me information. I have that objective information, and then there's subjective information of how I felt, what I think I could do, what I was experiencing during the row, where it got tough, what I was thinking when it got tough. Then I could look at my heart rate and see if my graph progressed as I rode and the intensity rose as I was getting more fatigued and the demand increased. And you take all of that and then you evaluate it and you take it with you into the rowing progression the
Right.
next week. But some people would like get that score, and like we're joking about Heather's 98 cows, right? Heather could easily, and athletes do this, and this is what I think he's talking about, is like you're not learning from the failure. Heather could look at her 98 calories and be like, I suck. That was terrible. All my expectations, like Harley's saying, were way higher than that, XYZ, and just it was worthless for you to do that. It was actually more diminishing to your psyche, your feelings, and then it's not going to create an opportunity for the next week, because you're going to echo bike next week, to bring yourself to that next session with optimism and opportunity. And like, okay, well, I got 98. So that means I'm biking about 9 calories a minute, and I'm going to bring this and try to go 10.
Yeah, totally. And I think that, like, you know, we learned that even just when you had a lot of these athletes doing the TTT progression, right? And it's like,
to triangle.
okay. But like people are just like trying to just get that one more. And I mean, I know we've already talked about this like on the podcast, but it's like, if you have no awareness of that, like if you're just like so in the, I got destroyed, this was so hard. Like Todd, you just said in your rowing, it's like, I knew when it got hard. I know what what was happening physically, like in your body and your mind and all those things. And a lot of athletes are just like, they're just like in there, just like working, but like have no conscious effort of what actually is happening. And I think that that's such like a key piece, because when you don't actually get the outcome, then it's like, well, how do you know if that you need one more calorie? How do you know if like it's a little bit uptick in your watts output, right? Like that kind of stuff. Because you're not just gonna, I mean, we talk about this all the time. You're not just going to go from like 200 watts to 300 watts in the next week. Like, it's just like not going to happen, you know?
Unless you're Harley.
Yeah.
Well, the other piece too is like you're saying, the failure thing. I think there are people who come from a place of failure already, and that's ingrained in them, and that's what they need to shift, because they'll get inside that workout and that moment, right? I'm at the 12-minute mark and I'm looking at it, I'm like, I need to hold this 156 pace. Like I want this 156 pace. My body's hurting. I want to do this. And it's like, and then I tell myself, and if you can't, it's okay, but you need to try. But I think people who, and I've done this, so I know, you stem from failure. You start looking at that monitor. You're like, I'm failing. Oh my God, I'm not going to make it. I'm a loser. This time is not going to be good, blah, blah, blah. And you start snowballing in that moment. And I think people who are elite don't have those moments as much, or they're able to turn that circular thought around and use it as an opportunity to get better instead of, I'm already failing.
Well,
I can resonate with that a lot. When I was a lot younger as an athlete, before I ever even met you guys, so this was when I was going to school in Monterey. It would have been about 2017. I used to have a vicious cycle of negative self-talk. As soon as anything started to go wrong, like I was just so mean to myself in my mind, and it never got better. And you know, I graduate, move on, you grow as a person, you start reading more information. Daily Stoic, we joked about it earlier, but like those types of perspectives, and you try to create a new habit of self-talk and reverse that cycle, as you just alluded to, and at the very least speak to yourself in neutral context rather than negative context. And generally that's, sets you up to keep holding that pace, or at least keep making good decisions to pick the bar back up or whatever you're doing.
Daily Stoic is great. I just like to joke about it because it's very popular, but
I have a whole new book idea. Like we can talk about it later, but it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal.
All right. Well, let's go to number 2. I did want to make that clear. I don't want to be the guy who hated on Daily Stoic. It's amazing. All right.
Okay, 2 is embraces obstacles.
Ooh,
Love yourself.
yeah. CJ says, love yourself.
Good one, CJ.
Giancarlo Antonelli.
Um,
Embracing obstacles.
Well, you know, in the words of Ryan Holiday, the obstacle is the way.
True. The obstacles away.
yeah. Well, I think this is like such an important one because I like a lot of times you see in training, people like just they don't want to do the thing that they suck at, right? Like,
Yeah.
and
Or
that-
they don't want to do the thing that they need to do. Like the
Right.
work that's in front of them. Like
Sure.
it's not always fun. It's
Yeah.
not always sexy. Like,
right.
and they think the idea of becoming an elite athlete like is appealing to them, but then they realize how much work and dedication and how many details go into it. And it's really
Yeah.
hard.
Oh man, that's such a good point. Because
Yeah,
I do
that's
think a lot
really
of
good.
people, like you're saying, Harley, think that the idea of being an elite athlete is going to motivate them in those moments when you need to face like the challenge. And like that's not like it'd be interesting to like yell at people like when they're doing a qualifier or something, be like, you want to be elite, this is your time to be elite. Like I just don't. I mean, I know that some people do respond that way.
Are you an elite athlete or are you a little bitch? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I don't know how
That won't work either. Again,
it might.
I don't think so.
Some people it could work for though, but not the majority of people. Majority of people are like, no, this pain is too much.
The only person it would work for is Jace.
Yeah, I mean that is the big thing. Like, what is going to keep you consistent? What is going to keep you motivated, especially in those huge times of duress?
Yeah.
And also like a positive outlook on the hard work or the obstacle. Because Fernando Ramirez and I joke about this a lot. And did I say it the other day? I think I said it the other day. And I was like laughing when I
Well,
said
I know
it.
you were talking about him. I don't know what you're going to
But
say.
he used to. So Fernando Ramirez, let's give a shout out. The guy's a good mentor. He was at our first gym. He coached the CDR Redlands and was also on the games team for CDR Redlands. Learned a lot from him. And he would always, and it didn't annoy me. I thought it was hilarious. We do a hard workout when we're all following Bergeron. And at the end of the workout, like literally at the end of the workout, he'd be like, that was easy. And like, we're all just dying. He's dying too. But it was just a thing where like, he would always look positively at the work and say it was easy. And we know that it was a facetious statement, but he's doing it to always like prime himself and keep himself in like, this is good. This, I like this. This is great. This will make me better. Like all of those positive affirmations and just lean into that hurt and that pain. And that's why I think he was so good.
Mm-hmm.
Mike McGoldrick, I used to fall down and he'd say "ow" like a little
You
whimpery
do that.
voice. Ow, ow, ow. I used to do it more. Put it that way. Mike McGoldrick would yell at me. He's like, "Say yes." He's like, "Yes," and I'd be like, "Yes." It's just terrible.
But it is that.
But it's the same sort of approach, and it's that like that's what you're there for. Like
Right.
you're there for the work, and you're there for the challenge, and when things get hard, like that's the experience. Like it's not an easy process or task to do CrossFit or fitness at a high effort.
Well, anything that's challenging, right? So like this is what makes people successful, and you can carry it over in any parts of your life. Hard conversations with people and relationships that you have. People don't want to do that, but that'll make you successful in your relationships. Talking to your boss or a coworker, getting collaboration, having hard conversations, like when somebody's messing up or you're messing up, like people don't want to do that. But if you can embrace those things, embrace the challenge, that's going to make you better. And you could take a little bit of CrossFit. That's why I love when people are like, it's the proxy for we can do hard things outside. And I don't think enough people make that connection of like how you can do hard things and how that's going to prime you into doing hard things. But you can like parlay it. You could kill yourself on a rower doing hard interval sets and learn how to embrace that hard, challenging thing and the thoughts in your mind and the anxiety and the pressure and all of that stuff and start to control it. And then take those same tactics and apply them to like when you're, going up to your boss's office and you're like heart rate's going through the roof and you're going to have this hard conversation or, whatever it is, you can use the same tactic you use in those hard efforts and apply them. And over time, you're going to get new tactics to help yourself, but that's a good place to start. And it can help you with the hard thing. And that's not enough people actually explain that. And they just do the mantra, we could do hard things.
Yeah.
Which is fine. If that's where you got to start, do that.
So a couple of things come to my mind. Have you guys heard of the book called The War of Art?
Of the
I've
book of
heard
Art of
it, but-
War.
No, the opposite. Yeah,
Okay.
there's two books. There's The Art of War, and then there's The War of Art.
Okay.
The War of Art, I believe, is by Pressfield.
look it
Anyways,
up.
I'll look that
Yeah,
up,
I'm gonna
or
look
you
it
can look it up. Essentially, it's one of the main principles it talks about. It's a very short little kind of self-help book. It's about perspective, right? Of how you approach your work. And
Why talent
in,
doesn't matter.
I'm sorry.
It says why talent doesn't matter.
Yeah. And so like essentially anyone can do hard work, and artists is talking about artists essentially. And it's like they describe it as resistance. It's the resistance to practice the craft. And it's even though you should be practicing and you should be doing your craft and you should be, trying to get better at the craft, whatever that craft is, you're faced with resistance in anything that you should be doing, but for whatever reason, consciously and emotionally, you don't want to do it on every single day, right? But theoretically, if you want to become good at things, you can practice some mode of them every single day. So whether it be mobility on your off days, nutrition on before your sessions, good effort in your sessions, and then recovery after the sessions. Like, we can be doing all these detail oriented things and we know they're really good for us, but why don't we? And it's just this idea of resistance and overcoming that resistance and embracing that resistance as a part of your process to become the best version of yourself in whatever form, as you said, Todd, not just in the gym, but in life. So
Dang, that was a good review. Based on the little quick review I read on Google, you nailed it. That's a good book.
it's a good book. It's really short. Like the audiobook, I think it's only like 45 minutes. It's like a little podcast.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like super short. It's
Oh.
really good.
All right, I'm gonna get it. I got
Yep.
some audio credits. It looks good. That's nice. If you're watching, get that book. I haven't read it. Harley likes it. He gave a good explanation of it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'd be great. CJ says, I think you don't always have to have positive motivation. A lot of times it's more about being disciplined. You can't rely on motivation because more often than not, it won't be there. It isn't enough, which is true. You can't like be motivated. Like I wonder how many people, if you listen to this, put in the chat or like DM me about how often you are able to motivate yourself to do something really hard. And like motivation is enough. Like, I want to do this because it's hard and I'm pumped about doing it because it's hard. Because I feel like only like Navy SEALs were legit do that.
Yeah.
And I think that honestly, they have just manipulated their perspective so much that it's just a game of it's the game of the, oh, that was easy. And oh, yes, like I'm embracing it. It's like, it's them just manipulating their perspective of challenge.
And there is a sick gratification because I get this sometimes too. I love being the hardest worker in the room, even if I'm not the best. I just know that I'm outworking you. I'm like, I don't care that my score is not good, but I know that I'm outworking you. I'm doing more. I'm cleaning up after myself in the gym. My area looks spotless. Like, I take pride. This is weird, but I take pride in that I mop better than all of our coaches. I'm just like, yeah, I'm gonna work so hard and mop so good. No one can touch me. But like some people get that way about it. And then it's like, oh, that hard thing of mopping the whole gym. Watch me mop it in 8 minutes. Time me, ready, go.
I know, we had this conversation about 5-minute fitness versus 6-minute fitness.
Yeah. I
I'm
know.
gonna do the 5 minutes because they said it's better.
I know. All right, what's the next one? That was good.
Next one, effort level gives their best regardless of how they feel.
Oh yeah. Cool.
I feel like we talked about this on a previous podcast
Yeah.
about missing paces. So like say you feel really bad in a given session, right? We're talking about 5Ks earlier, 5K rows. So like say you're on a 5K row progression, you're deep in the cycle, you're like week 4 or 5 of the progression, the duration is getting longer or whatever, and you miss your pace on like your last 2 intervals, whatever it is. Was that whole session a waste?
For some people, yes. For successful people, no.
But is that because of their perspective of the session, or is that because of the actual effects on the system?
Both.
Because
Like,
of,
it's a good.
are you
set.
trying to say that because they have a negative perspective that they're actually dampening the outcome of it because they're not leaving
still
the
gonna get
session
positive-
feeling fulfilled?
Yes, you're still going to get biological positive adaptations from that
Correct.
season. But psychologically, you're going to feel, which could increase. This goes a deeper argument, but I don't think it increases your cortisol enough to dampen those effects from that like rowing session. I don't think it's enough. You'd have to do blood testing and test that out. But I would be shocked if like your negative mindset and emotional distress about the session overpowers all the good stuff from rowing that session. I would be shocked.
I think what you're alluding to and what I would agree with in this takeaway is that if someone leaves the session truly feeling defeated, missing the expectation, that we talked about expectations earlier, missing the expectation, dwelling on it, holding on to that negativity, and then taking it into the next session as a rationale for why they should be less confident going into the next session, that's where it's a negative.
Yep.
And that's, again, perspective and psychological choices, right? So like the skill of letting go, of reflecting upon it, what happened, what were the factors that maybe caused me to have a suboptimal outcome, and then letting it go. And knowing that you're going to try your best the next time around, like that'd be great. But if you can't do that and you know that you're that person that just holds on to things indefinitely, I think that you're going to inevitably hold yourself back.
Yeah. And you're going to end up just burning out though.
For sure.
Because that gets terrible because you're beating yourself up and like at that point.
Emotionally, mentally.
Yep. Yeah. And it's personal abuse. So like there is a lot in psychology where like people will do that and you do it too long. You're basically in a singular abusive relationship with yourself, and that needs to be rectified and talked about. It's tough, and like people will do that, but some of these things, like just listening to this list, you can change some of those things and the view, so then you have less of that in your life, which ultimately will lead you to not having it at all eventually. Not at all, but you know what I mean. It'll clear it up.
I missed my outputs yesterday on my interval session.
That happens.
I know.
Yeah.
About halfway through, it was the Miko triangle progression I'm doing. And it was 2 sets of 25 minutes of basically 4 minutes on, 1 minute off. I'm doubling up the ski because that's my weakest machine. So I'm going basically row ski, bike ski to increase the time there.
Yeah.
And I just missed it in the last round of my first half. I missed it and I barely made it on the whatever previous set. And then I wrote down my notes. I'm like, hey, I just don't quite have the push today, but like the time doing this is worthwhile. Like there's value here. I like typed it out in my notes because I had a longer break before the next EMOM. Next EMOM, I made the first 2 and I missed one of the machines or 2 of the machines every round after that. And it's like, yeah, but like if you look at my heart rate, I didn't back down from a systemic like output. My high was still my high, and it just wasn't there today on that day. And it was.
But see, that's what's crazy though, because like it was there. Like that's my argument about the biology versus the psychology. Like biologically, it was there. Biologically, you turned over glycogen, you consumed oxygen. You know,
I mean, the specific output that the monitor received
how often
wasn't there.
Right, but like then that's where like
1 to 2 calories here and there.
Yeah, but as coaches, when we look at force production and we start looking at an athlete like that, it's like that's an acceptable margin to miss in training. You know,
yeah, for
and
sure.
you might even do it in a qualifier or whatever, but. You know, like back to the motivation thing and like doing hard things. As long as you keep coming back for that session, you will get better in the long term, unless you know you have a million sessions like that. But as coaches, it's our job to be like, hey, you just had like the last 3 sessions like this.
Yeah,
what's going on?
Fun fact: I'm going into a deload this week. There could have been a subconscious reservation of like, oh, this is the last week until I get a little break, and I got like a little mentally checked out, or accepting that, oh, I'm tired. I'm supposed to be tired. This is the last week of accumulation before I get a break. You know, like there could be the subconscious or the, you know, psychological side of that. They could be genuine fatigue just accrued of, you know, on my system. And like, that's okay. Like
eat enough Chipotle the day before.
Dude, I haven't been eating and probably enough at all, but I'm trying to skinny up, as you said.
I didn't say that.
Like,
You
even
said
just
that.
going to
You
the
said
effort
that.
level, like regardless of like what you were producing on the machines, like you were trying, you were putting your effort in there. And I think that that's kind of like not getting too far in the weeds of it. Like, I think that was the point that like Justin's making, right? Is like coming in and it's like, you may not have it every day. You may not be able to just like get after it every single day, but it's like you showed up, you came in, you put in the work, you put forth the effort. You weren't in there in your mind being like, oh, I freaking suck. I can't hit these numbers, whatever. Like that's just what you had today. And like, that's okay. Right. Like, and if you're having multiple sessions like that, okay, then there's like a conversation. But I think that's the point that like Justin's trying to make. And I think also with like, when you're doing progressions like this, you should be feeling like you're overreaching. There may not be every single session where like you're just going to hit it every single time. And I think that like if you're coming into every session and you're expecting to like hit your numbers, do this, hit the rep scheme, like whatever, like hit your weights, it's like you're not
the training's
actually
not hard enough.
the training's not hard enough, right?
Right.
So it's like I think that that's such a like an important thing to like remember too, where it's like you're just not going to like bang it out. Like that's not the expectation necessarily. Like great if you hit that and you're feeling great and you can do it, cool. But like that's like the little bit that you're
not
trying
to
to
put pressure on people with that though. Like in training progressions, like let's say like Harley's saying like, or you're doing a barbell progression or whatever, and it's week to week to week, you're increasing and growing and moving. As the weeks go on, as long as you feel good physically and you're recovering, it should get easier though. So keep that in mind. And like, I think sometimes people are like, they know they're peaking and they put
a fine line. I think there's a fine line with that.
Some people will know that they're peaking and they'll get too anxious about it and then they won't PR because like they figured out that they're peaking. And then you have somebody like, I'll give her a shout out because she crushed it. She got like 4 or 5 PRs in this last week. But Meg. Oh. So I had her basically peaking and I wasn't really telling her that she was peaking, and she PR'd a split jerk. She PR'd her clean and jerk. She PR'd her power clean. And her back squat and one other thing I can't remember, but like I had her on a peak to do those things and I didn't say anything, and then boom, she hit them. So like that's one of those things. Like you may not, if I told her that she was about to peak, I bet you that would have dampened it a little bit. So it's hard, but like if you're on a good progression and you've been putting in the work and things are really close, like if Harley hits his pace within a calorie and he doesn't fall off that often, I guarantee like he retests whatever he baselined, he's gonna PR it. But if you're like way off all the time, then maybe not. But
yeah, I didn't bring that up to really talk about my failure. It was more of to talk about the note that I gave myself in the middle. And it was more of just acknowledging that there's value in the work being done as long as you're not backing down from the effort that you're putting into the session. Right. So back to the initial quote was something about if you don't, they still put in the best effort they can, regardless of how they feel. And it's,
right.
That's the takeaway, is that like we should be rewarding effort and not focusing on outcomes. We should be focusing on giving our best.
Guides you, but the effort is what gives you the outcome.
The result will be a byproduct of the effort that you put in day day out.
Yeah. But I also want to like add to the effort level too. It's like having intention with your effort too. Like I think it's a lot beyond just like showing up and just like like doing
everybody's
shit,
showing up,
right? Yeah. Like it's just like I want to kind of put that caveat in too, because I think that sometimes people are just like, well, I did the work, I went through the motions, I did the bike, I did the ski, I did the row. Why am I not getting better? Like so, I think there's like an intention piece to that too.
For sure, I'd say effort in the process, and within when I think of process, I think of the steps of everything along the way. Like the gymnastics session, and that you're trying to get better at bar muscle ups, but for whatever reason that day you didn't go through a methodical sort of build up to your bar muscle up. Like you didn't hit hollow holds, arch holds, practice your kipping, practice at least 1 to 2 little sets of priming movements and priming drills. Yeah, you're probably going to have an off session, at least in the first couple sets, while you're actually warming up and getting the system going. Yeah. And maybe your coach writes that in for you every single time. Maybe they don't, but you should be forming these tools and this, these steps in your back pocket and your toolbox so that you know what to do to optimize your execution. And again, the details and the effort throughout the holistic view of the process is what I think Heather's alluding to as well.
Yeah, I think it matters to understand where you're at in that process, because like you said, coming to the session, coming into the gym or doing your training might be layer 1 for somebody, right? So that is their intention. That is their effort. That's what they have for the day. That's what they have for the first week or whatever. And then like Harley's saying, like you start layering things in. It's like, did I warm up my shoulders? I'm learning what works for me. I'm doing this. I'm going through this thing. Then when it's like, okay, I'm now doing bar muscle ups. All right, I can do 1 bar muscle up. Cool. All right, I want to improve them. I want to get 2. And maybe the goal is just to get 2. So your intention is trying to get 2. And then there might be layers in there of like, why the coach said I need to get my hips up, or I need to press down on the bar more. I need to pull my elbows back at a certain point, or I need to, like, whatever it is, you start hearing what the coach is saying and go, all right, this is layer 3. Layer 1, I'm already doing. I'm coming in. I got the program up and I'm trying. Layer 2 is I do my warm-up drills. Layer 3 is now I'm listening to the coach and the cues and corrections from last week, and I'm trying to apply them without any resistance. Not saying, well, I do it like this because everything else. And you start layering in more layers and more layers and more layers. And eventually you are very detail oriented in a specific way, and you can control that effort. And that effort, I would argue, is greater than like an output effort.
Mm.
And it's up there with like the physical effort and like what Harley's saying in his notes. Like, I'm giving my effort. I'm trying. This starts to hurt. I'm losing ground here on the pace, but it's okay. I'm here to do it and I'm here to work. Those two efforts I think are valuable. And then the stepping can allow people, because you may not be ready for hearing what the coach is saying for the cue and correction. You may not be at that stage. You might still be in like, well, shit, I missed my session like 2 weeks ago and I've gotten 2 weeks under my belt and I'm going to miss the next one because XYZ or whatever. Like, so you may not even be ready for that part yet.
Yeah.
And knowing as an athlete where you are in that process, that might be valuable. Or you may not care and you're like, just put pressure on me. I need accountability. Keep telling me that I need to come in and do this and get after it. Right. So that's valuable.
Do you think that works?
Putting pressure on people? I think accountability does work. I mean,
remotely, specifically, as a remote coach.
It's hard to say, only because I think in the capacity of like in the affiliate, we have members who text other members, and yes, they may come to the class at that time and like support somebody. There are times where they're like, hey, you better get your butt in there. And they're remotely supporting somebody, even though they're in the same gym, but they're texting them and it's getting to them. And then they come into the class and it may not be the class that person's coming to that they texted them, but then that person then texts that person like, I went to class today, look at my score. That's the remote relationship happening in a physical space. So I do think,
correct.
I do think there is validity there. I don't know how much, and that could be debated, but I think there is.
Hard. I just think it's a hard topic.
Yeah. Remote bullying.
That's a
works.
In all
bullying.
In all honesty, that's exactly who came to my mind. I was like, yeah, man, like I think I have a hard time being the remote bully, because he'll say that. He'll be like, oh dude, like I had a really hard time in this 5K run I did this weekend, and it
all track fans. What's up, Adam? You a fan? What's up? All right, go ahead.
So Mike was like, oh, I had a really hard time on this hike, or I had a really hard time on this 5K. I need to do more cardio. Bully me into doing cardio. And I'm like,
bully me.
And I'm like, yeah, man, like we've been doing cardio, but you kind of missed a few sessions, you know, like
you kind of
missed a few sessions. Like it is what it is. But
nice
I have a really hard time like
missed it.
Trying to be like a really stern enforcer, because like
this is how I bully Cody.
Yeah,
well, Cody, you'd be a lot better if you did the session. Rock on emoji. All right. Mike Hughes needs some
I'll try that.
Friendly bullying. All right. I like it. All right. Next one.
Next one is seeks critical feedback.
Oh, man.
This is a good one.
Dude, how many people put in the chat if you think you seek and accept critical feedback and are in a place where you really engage in it?
All right. I got a good one.
I don't think people do. I think it's
they
far less people engage in critical feedback than people do. And I think people who say they I love feedback.
I think honestly, it's more because people take it more as a self-worth type thing.
Yeah.
You know, like they're so worried about, well, if they give me this feedback, they say I didn't do this right, or this didn't look right, or whatever. It's like they take it as like a criticism to who they are as a person or an athlete or whatever. Yeah. And I think that's the really hard piece that a lot of people need to overcome or try to just even acknowledge, right? Like, you're not going to maybe overcome that overnight, but I think that's why a lot of people just are so resistant to it, even though they say that they aren't, because they take it more as a personal dig than anything.
Yeah. Well, critical is going to be somewhat hurtful, right? And it shouldn't be like degrading, like you're a piece of shit, blah, blah, blah. Like that's not good. But okay. Heather, we want to share.
I knew you were going to bring this up.
Want to share? And it's good because we have a good relationship and we've been in for a really long time. And sometimes in the coaching capacity at at the gym, Heather's pretty resistant to critical feedback. And we all are. Like Heather gives me critical feedback and I don't like it. And half the time I just say, okay. And like I do what she says to do. And it's hard for her because I'll tell her something and I don't want to be like coming in and being like, hey man, you're like messing up your job. Like we got to do this better, and giving her real critical feedback. She doesn't want to hear that. It hurts because she cares about her job. She cares about what she's doing. She cares about helping people. And I know all these things, but I got to come and say, you fucked up, you know, and that's okay. Let's fix it and move forward. And you do have a hard time sometimes accepting that.
Well, in our specific incident, we won't get into what it was, but literally yesterday we had a conflict about it. And I think what I was explaining to him today when we talked through it again, it was like, I was trying to be heard about why I did it a certain way or perceived something a certain way. And he was like, well, it doesn't matter because this is what happened.
Right.
Right. And so I think I was so caught up in explaining myself and explaining how I perceived the situation, even though I was like, I understand what you're saying and you're not wrong. So I think for me, I needed to explain myself, and then I needed to take the feedback, and then I needed to be like, okay, well, that's what it is. Right. And so,
But
I was caught up in explaining my reasoning more so, which I think is still important because I think I still need to be heard by, because the misstep wasn't intentional. Right. But to your point, I needed to explain myself and then just get on board.
Yeah. And then get on board because you now know you're like, all right. And that's taking critical feedback.
Yeah.
That's being okay. And like moving forward, she's going to do it. And she realizes like, yeah, we got to do this and we're going to do it together as a team. I'm here to support you. You're going to do it. We're going to do it. I'm going to do it when it's necessary. And like, that's it. And people just cannot have that conversation, man.
Yeah.
It's wild.
But I think also, I'm going to say your critical feedback though, is like you get, well, that's fine. I don't care. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And I'm like, well, no, it does matter. Right. Because it's like, you're obviously making a point about it. Right. And so we're at this pass. So it's like, you care enough to make an argument about it. So like, I think just
finish it out.
Right. The delivery of it and the not just scaling back of like, I don't care then. It doesn't matter. It doesn't, like, cause then you go inside yourself about it too.
That was an example of resolving and working through critical feedback. I was like,
it's going to come up. I know it.
But it's good because I do know a lot of people don't do it. And then even like a lot of people cannot openly in front of people who are going to watch this later. We got 4 people watching and there are people, we get like 90 something views and that's great. And we're growing, are going to hear this. And some people won't even have that conversation on air in front of other people.
Right. So I have a couple of little anecdotes. One, coworker vibe. Right? Like
coworker.
You guys, you two up there having a little moment, right? So Deshaun, young guy, has been coaching for a little while.
Himself right now. Are you on Deshaun? Defend yourself in the comments.
No, it's fine. His apology, like he was like, oh, sorry for not listening, not just hearing you out. Because we've talked about this a few times. Essentially, he comes to me and has asked me here and there, he'll be like, oh, teach me something today. I'm like, I don't fucking know what to teach you. So, but anyways, like his point is he tells me he wants to be a good coach. He asks me questions like, hey, teach me something. Like, can you share something for the day? Like anything that's on your mind. And it doesn't even have to be about coaching. Like, we just talk about all sorts of stuff. And so one day this past week, he was coaching at the front of the class. There was 19 people in his class and he was just like leading them through a barbell warm up, but he was just like standing put right at the front.
I hate that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's just like standing still. And so I'm like doing my bodybuilding off the side, just like watching, right? And so then when in between time of the class or the Metcon got started, I kind of walked by him. I was like, hey man, how many cues did you give out during that time? That's all I asked him. Like, and it's truly, I try to ask.
He probably thought you were a dick.
Oh, for sure. Right. Like
in that moment,
he didn't try to explain himself too much. He got a little defensive and was like, oh, I did better in the previous class. And I'm like, that's okay, but I wasn't here for the previous class. So I'm only talking about this moment right now. That's all I'm talking about.
Yeah.
It's not judging your whole coaching, not judging you as a person. Like I'm just asking a question about right now.
Yeah.
And then his response is, oh, that's just my ego getting in the way. I was like, yeah, man, well, don't ask me to give you feedback if you're going to be this resistant to it, because he was basically just like, he had a rationalization for it. He had a defensive comment. He then blamed it on his ego, which is at least a mature way to own it, right? Like that is a direction. Yep. But I was like, yeah, man, I'm just trying to help. And like, we've talked it through of like, I only give feedback with pure intentions. Like, I'm not here to tear you down. And we've talked about that on
I think
previous
most people
occasions
do.
too. What?
I think most people do that, honestly.
Yeah, it's out of wanting the best for the peers, your coworkers, the environment you're in. You want to build people up ideally, and you may ask them to do something differently or give them feedback, and it's hard to hear, as you said earlier, and as Deshaun alluded to, like, it hurt his ego. He thought I was like demeaning him, and I'm like, no, man, like, never is. 10 minutes later, he walked up to me and was like, hey man, sorry for being resistant. I was like, all good, dude. Like, all good. I'm not holding a grudge over it.
That's good. That's a place of growth. He's gonna get good fast.
He's gonna get better for sure. But it's through these hard conversations and those interactions where I'm like kind of calling him on it. Like, hey, like, you're being resistant here. You asked me for help. I'm trying to give you help, and I'm trying to do it nicely. Like, I'm not here with any, negativity in mind. Pivot, athlete story.
Mhm.
Jace, this past week, he's peaking for Desert City. We're going out to Arizona this week. There's a snatch event. He expressed concern about some snatches in a previous week. I was like, yeah, man, it's just the way that we've been forming your training. You're doing snatch balances before your snatches. You're tired, your overhead positions, fatigued by the time you even get to them. That's why they're off. The next 2 weeks, we're not going to do that. You're going to feel great. He ties his all-time best snatch.
Nice.
Smokes it. Looks really, really strong.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
Good job, dude. Shout out.
Looking good. He apparently got interrupted with the class flow, so he had to kind of wait between the heavy single and then the snatch battery work. And instead of warming back up, which ideally it was going to go heavy snatch and then into like 1 minute at 80%, like 80% should feel light coming off of like a heavier single.
But he had the downtime.
But he had the downtime. He down regulated, whatever. And in that first minute, he probably pulled that bar 7 or 8 times and he made one. And I was like,
that's tough though.
I did. For sure. Circumstantially, it is tough.
Yeah.
But I gave him some feedback. And I was like, hey, man, a little disappointed in that. I really, it's a good note that you acknowledge that you could have warmed up, re-warmed back up for it. And you didn't. And you kind of just like dove back into it. And it is what it is. But, I was a little disappointed in that. So like try to optimize the session moving forward. We want to build confidence, consistency over the next 2 weeks. Like, let's make the most of these last few sessions.
I would be concerned about this 20 back squat, 1 mile run.
Oh, dude, that's sick, right?
That's good. That's a great workout.
Great test.
About snatching, I'd be like, how do I win this workout?
Yeah.
But events because I wanted to see him.
So I shot him a message specifically saying I'm disappointed in this, which is a rough line. Like, no one wants to disappoint people.
Bully.
I'm a bully. But his response was, yeah, I can do that. He's like, I will do that. And that was it. And I'm like, that's fucking awesome. I told him, I was like, no one, like, you are few and far between.
Yeah.
No one hears that, reads that message and goes, yes, I messed up. I'll do better. No argument. I can do that. And it's like, because our human nature is reactive, defensive, and self, preserving.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to look at critical feedback as a gift. And that, like, when someone comes to you, especially people, because like you said a bunch of times, none of that's coming from a negative place.
Yeah.
Like, you might offhandedly say something to somebody that's not in your inner circle and be pretty shitty. Like, everybody does that in life. I don't care how good you think you are. But like with Heather, like, we're just in this relationship of like, yeah, we're going to have tough conversations all the time. And the second I stop having tough conversations with you and vice versa, like, I don't care about you anymore. That's a shitty place to be.
I was just going to say that. The second you stop getting that kind of feedback, they don't care anymore.
Yeah. And that's I think worse.
Yeah.
And I think about that. That's what helps me in these processes. Like, I grit my teeth. I don't want to hear things. Heather tells me stuff. I'm like, oh. Marissa tells me shit. I'm like, and I got to listen. I got to hear it, and like, that's a good spot to be in because I want to grow. But if people stop telling you stuff, that's when you should be really worried. I would.
What were you going to say, Tyler?
Well, I was going to say 2 things. One is like building the relationship so that that it's not just like I'm criticizing for the sake of criticizing, you know? So like you have this relationship with the coach athlete or the athlete to the coach of where it's like, I actually am expressing to you that I want your best for you so that when I give critical feedback, they know that it's not just being a jerk. They know it's coming from a place of like, I'm trying to make you better because I care about you being better. So
We
that,
should-
and then
We should make coaches shirts that say, "I'm your friend."
yeah.
Coach on the back.
But the other thing is like, and I think Jace was a great example of this, is like Heather said at the beginning of this point of like, when you don't put your identity in your performance or your job or whatever, that you can have a level of humility that when someone does say something that it's most likely true in the first place, but when they say something you don't want to hear, you can still take it. And again, you know that it's not coming from a like angry or a hurtful place, because you have that level of humility of going like, I know that there's more to me than just my job or my athletic performance, and you can embrace it as opposed to being resistant to it because it hurt your ego, because it's where you're placing your identity.
Yeah. Well, you can
Yeah.
isolate it, right?
Yep.
Like it doesn't become like it's just like this isolated moment, this fixed moment of you didn't hit the mark on the snatches, or it was this one specific class in the two examples Harley gave, right? And it doesn't become like this all consuming, this is my identity, he's attacking me as a person. It just
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. What's the last one?
Oh,
Killing
last one is learn from success and failure. I feel like that's kind of similar to the first one, but
I mean, if you listen to this podcast, doing that, hitting it.
All right. Well, I didn't say this one earlier, but this was the initial line that came to my mind with the first one, and learning from success and failure. There's a saying that my mom told me a long time, like when I was a kid, and it was, smart person learns from his mistakes, a wise person learns from others. And I think that the best athletes in the world in any given sport, and the best people in the world, you know, they of course learn from themselves, but they look at their peer group and who they want to, you know, to be competitive against, or, you know, who they want to be compared to. And they learn from them equally to learning how to be the best of themselves.
Right.
And whether it be through, how does the best CrossFitter in the game do muscle ups? What are the different variations of a muscle up that, you know, you can learn to have all those different tools in your toolbox? Or how did this person I respect respond to a very challenging situation? And it's like, you just emulate.
Yeah.
You know,
It's
who
having
you
a
wanna
high
become.
degree in respect for experience. You know, that's rooted in knowledge and efficacy of outcome. So like we definitely struggle with this as coaches. I think we find ourselves, and I find myself in this position often with people. And I hate having to be like, yeah, but I've now done this for 15 years. Like, and I've worked with some of the best people on earth. Like, I know how this is going to play out. And because people want to have their own experience. It's like, you could cut the curve with me if you just sit back and listen. And I don't like playing that role, but I think as coaches, we do have to sometimes, because people are just like, I want to learn, I want to do this, I want to know why, and I want to learn it for myself. And it's like, well, that's going to take you like 5 years. So do you want to do that? Or do we want to cut the curve, like Harley's saying, sit back for a second, put your ego aside and learn from the best, and look at other people, emulate stuff, and have someone support you in that process, rather than just, you know, it's having respect for quality, experience, and efficacy of outcome for the person that you're trusting. And I think that's hard for people. I think people don't, especially this day and age, you know, you look at social media, it's like, who do you trust? You go online and you watch somebody put up videos, and like, I'm glad people are doing it, but there are some people who should not be putting up fitness advice on the internet, and they are. And so, yeah, the question is like, well, why do I trust Harley? Why am I going to trust, you know, Todd? You come in a CrossFit class, like the person standing in front of you. Why am I trusting this coach? Where is this programming coming from? What is their thought process? Are they manipulating? Are they diving into it? Are they doing it? You know, and I think that's the biggest thing of like why for a long time CrossFit's been like, the coaches have to do the program design. They have to have their own medicine. It's like, well, no, yes and no. If you do CrossFit, I think you're getting the medicine. So as long as your CrossFit coach is doing CrossFit or whatever, or they have some experience with it, they don't need to do exactly what you're doing, but a version of what you're doing is fine. And so building that trust through that was helpful. But then also, like, I would argue, as people move on through their fitness journey, you don't need to do CrossFit every day to understand. Someone like Harley is moving on into cycling. He has done CrossFit for a decade, has done it at the highest level, has coached really high level athletes. Like, you can trust his advice. you know, and he's also willing to be wrong. Same thing with myself. Like, I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to be wrong because I don't want to be wrong in this thing, fitness. I don't want to be wrong. So I'm going to know more than everybody and everyone to not be wrong because I don't like being wrong. But also like the pursuit of trust. I'm here to try and help you. So just trust that this has worked for others. It's going to work for you. And we're taking, you know, the failures of others. We're taking the success of others and piling it into you as quickly as possible. And like, it's like the cheat code to jump that process. Like, you don't need to go through that process and slow yourself down unless you're like, you have some weird obsession of like, I have to experience this myself, which I think is what people get stuck on. And I'm like, do you though? Because there's a lot of things in life that I've learned rather quickly and not experienced.
Yeah, I mean, why do seminars exist?
Oh yeah.
It's so that you can take a compilation of people's experiences, what they have found to work well, and what they've learned doesn't work and have thrown to the side, and they're going to give you the best concise delivery of this product that they believe in. And that's really just the accumulation of their entire experience within, you know, up until that point. And ideally they continue to grow in their own pursuit, right? But when you go to a seminar, you're getting their product, and that's their product is their experience. And so like, that's why that exists. Why do mentorships exist? It's so that you can be underneath someone within a field that you want to become an expert in, or, you know, gain a career in, gain more knowledge in, and you're learning from them. We value, you know, those who have come before us, those who have the experience. And why wouldn't you try to learn from their successes and failures as well as your own?
Yeah. Because you can bridge the gap faster.
Way faster. Shorten learning curve, as you said earlier.
Yeah. And the other thing is like, you're going to get those tools and then you get to try them for yourself. So you're still going to have your own experience. It's not like someone's stealing your experience. They're trying to amplify and accelerate your experience.
That's why the advancements in technology are just basically exponential in nature, is because someone built a computer in the like late 60s, which then became something you could have in your home in the late 80s, early 90s. And then the internet was formed. And now we have these in our pockets that are the supercomputers compared to something, you know, 60 years ago. Like I can't think of the exact name, but there's a viewpoint that essentially like technological advancements are exponential. I think it's like every 2 years. Basically, like that's the rate of advancement in technology nowadays. And it's crazy.
And it's because they're building it off the backs of work that people already did. They're not going back and redoing the work. Well, I got to experience this for myself. I need to build the computer from the ground up before I add any layer to anything. It's like, wow, that's such a noble endeavor.
I'm going to start my own company in a garage. I'm the future Bezos.
Oh my God. I mean, you might be because
My company's called Orange.
Orange and Theory, Orange Theory.
I think she was saying apple. It's apples and oranges.
Oh, I didn't get that.
Oh,
That was good. Damn,
yeah, I know. Damn,
normally
you
I like
missed it.
with puns. Fuck,
You missed it.
that was good.
He got it. He got it.
Orange. No, and you don't want to discourage somebody because someone might have a really novel idea also, right? But that's going to get flushed out pretty quick in any industry. As far as like, oh, you got something here, go for it, right? This is new. This is innovative. But the thing is like, dude, at 26 years old doing fitness, or 30 years old, or 40 years old, or 50 years old doing fitness, like, I can trust you, my friend. You have not thought of anything new. Like,
I just looked it up. It's called Moore's Law. It's the theory that the speed of computer processors doubles every 2 years.
wow.
Yep.
Wow. That is crazy.
Moore's Law is what I was trying to refer to.
Yeah.
We need a Jamie on here. We need someone that's going to just like be
Right.
off to the side,
Also-
just like,
Yeah. Marissa wants that job. She likes that idea.
Yeah. When are we getting Marissa on these podcasts?
hey, she doesn't want to be in this rat's
She
nest.
does. She loves it.
This rat's
She loves
nest. When Ruth is more self-sufficient, maybe.
She's
Or,
self-sufficient now.
grandma comes and
She's
watches.
self-sufficient now.
Well, you can just like leave her there for an hour.
Sure you
and-
can. She's fine.
Dude, she'll lay on her back. She'll sit there. It's fine.
She's a grown adult. Hey, she turned and floated today. All right.
I know. She's wild. No, she's floating. She's doing crazy things.
She did
Advanced.
this today.
In the water. Yeah. Hey, that's better than drowning.
That's good.
I was telling them a joke this weekend. I was holding her on my lap and I was like playing with her and like leaning her back.
Oh,
and she
yeah.
literally leaned back and went, like she was floating, like she
Yeah.
like knew just like instinctually what to do, put her chin back. I was like, look
Yeah.
at this girl.
So they
Crushing
teach 'em.
it.
Should teach 'em. Becomes habit. All right. Desert Classic this weekend.
Desert City Classic,
Where in
City.
Arizona is it?
Tempe. It's like
Oh.
at Arizona State University's athletic facility.
Oh, so where Legends is.
Yeah, same spot.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, swim event for event 1. Event 2 is a 2-part workout of snatches and something else. They're trying to be all sneaky and be like, "Oh, you gotta wait. You gotta wait to
Like,
learn."
That's the
I'm
worst.
like, dude, just
I feel like that just breeds
let us know. Just
okay,
let
that
us
just
know.
breeds so much chaos. Like just tell
Oh, for
people
sure.
what it is.
Well,
'Cause
even
then you
for
got, like-
themselves as an event
Well, like-
organizer.
The judges are still learning standards. Athletes have a million questions. Like just tell them ahead of time so
It'll
they
be all
can.
right. Not
That's
too worried about it. They'll be okay.
So annoying.
It's CrossFit.
Yeah.
Unknown and unknowable. It's
Yeah,
the
it's
way, the
annoying.
only way,
I feel like the events that do that, they're still caught in 2009.
for sure. Last year they announced them all ahead of time, I think, if I recall correctly. But anyways, this year they're deciding to try to create anticipation, the hype cycle.
Yeah, but like Rogue announced all their workouts on Monday, and the people compete, and they're giving them time.
All but 2.
pegboard. Yeah, and they're giving them time to work on the pegboard and everything else. And then most of the stuff that they're announced is like normal CrossFit.
Yeah,
stuff.
the only thing that they announced with a good amount of notice was crossover singles, and they said it to someone in a comment was like, "Oh, we want to give you a chance to not look like." They're like, "Oh, it's not a legitimate test because you put crossover singles in.
Mm.
You're just making us look stupid." And they're like, "Well, we're trying to prevent that by letting you know a month in advance that we're going to do those. So
Yeah.
you better figure it out."
Loser.
Yeah, that person was just a little baby troll in the chat,
It's okay. They were concerned.
They were.
All right, so you got competing.
I'm not. Who do I have competing? Oh, I thought you said you're competing. I'm like, no,
No.
I don't do that anymore. Not anytime soon. So it's Jace, Brooks, and Selene.
Nice. Got high hopes.
Yep. Not really. I think that's going to be a great opportunity for them. I think that for many reasons. I had a conversation with Celine this past week, and it all comes back to for her the opportunity to be there. We don't have that many opportunities throughout the year to compete against the best in the sport, and really, how many people really get to compete against the best in the sport at any point in their CrossFit experience? And the answer is not many. And unless you happen to get, a team to Wodapalooza, or you become fit enough that you get to qualify for these really high level events. But many people don't ever get to do that. And so she and Jace both did really well in the qualifier. They're in the elite division, and they've announced some people who got invites. And there's a games athlete on the women's side, Hattie Canio, Hannah Black. She was a games athlete on Invictus team this year as well. Quite a few semifinals females as well.
Nice.
So Celine's going to have a great experience just trying to race with some of the best in the sport. And I think the same could be said for Jace. I don't remember all of the guys that got invites off the top of my head, but there's a John Wood is a local guy here in Denver. He's going out there. He's been, in the teens at semifinals, missed the game by a handful of spots.
Didn't he miss
before.
a spot one year?
I think it was 2 spots when I was there.
Ooh.
So yeah, he's really good. And so Jace is going to have, again, the opportunity to race against some of these people who are really, really fit. And I think that especially for someone like Jace, who has really big goals and a lot of potential and is young, that's going to be, a big stepping stone for him. So the expectations in my mind, I don't really have any other than I want them to, execute in a way that makes them feel proud that they've given their best effort, and they, get the opportunity to play the game with the best in the sport.
Sick. Well, good luck, guys. We'll post about you. Send us any videos and stuff. Harley's going to be there. It'll be fun.
Snapping photos, walking in circles.
That's how it goes. 20,000 step day.
Nah, it's going to be way more chill than that with only 2 of them.
No, come on. Try to get those 20K.
Way.
All right. That was a good one. If you guys have any suggestions, DM us, comment. I look at the comments of YouTube. If you haven't already, like and subscribe and share this episode. And we'll catch you guys Later.